what we're trying to achieve is an economy that actually reflects human interactions and reflects the reality of relationships and networks that people have, rather than this type of artificial economy that's financialized and that it's driven by the interests of the markets that are really abstract to the interests of communities and people. I think that's really what our focus is all about. It's about essentially making the economy work for the interests of people and democratizing it as well. So if that's a radical left-wing idea, then call it radically left-wing. People treat economics as a morality play, where they say, for example, things like Greece, or in general, you know, Greece has borrowed too much money, therefore they should cut their spending, as if it's like, you know, you've got a credit card and you've got too much of a debt, so you have to cut your spending in order to pay off your debt. It doesn't work like that. Or in terms of, you know, if you've borrowed too much money in the past, therefore you must be punished for the actions that you've taken. Again, economics doesn't work like that, and they actually try and boil down a simplistic message. I think you need to give people tangible examples of how the economy could be different and how you can actually change the economy for the interests of people. In terms of the politics being polarised, what I think that is a sign of is a real loss of confidence in the traditional politics of, you know, if you look in Britain, whether it's Labour, Lib Dems and Tories, they're all saying the same things. Three, the biggest parties, and UKIP as well, that are all preaching a message of austerity, and that there really isn't. UKIP are bringing in the blaming migrants and others for problems, which I think is completely a straw man argument. I think there's a populist message underlying UKIP that's particularly, it's a simplistic message. It's the idea of these simple solutions to really complicated problems. You know, that somebody else is to blame, and people who are coming in from other countries, they're responsible for the mess that Britain's in. And it's really, when you actually look at it's complete nonsense, and that's just the reality of it all. I'll actually challenge that in a number of different ways. I mean, the first key point to make is that actually, in terms of the recovery, this has been the worst economic recovery in history, in economic history, for the UK anyway. I'm not sure about the South, but I'm sure it's fairly similar. So in terms of saying that austerity has worked, well, that's why we had the worst economic recovery in history. The real economy, in terms of the production of stuff, and not only just the production of physical goods and services, a lot of it is now being financialised, driven by house price speculation, but also the key point is people's wages haven't risen, and who is benefiting from this so-called recovery? It's not the ordinary people on the ground. It's a growth in those who are the wealthiest in our society, which is not being shared amongst the rest of the population. One of the key policies that we've been promoting is the idea of the living wage. The idea that people should not be in work poverty. The people who are working full time should be paid a wage that is adequate for them to live a half decent standard of a life. One of the other policies which has received started to get a bit of discussion is the idea of a citizen's income. The idea, and again, this is for many people, this is something that it seems incredibly radical, but the idea that you would pay people a basic level of an income regardless of whether they would do any work, or everybody would get it, and you would get to keep it even if you started working. And again, that idea really jars with people, because we've been told about things like welfare reform and everything. You must get back to work. You must. We have too many people who aren't working, and that's essentially the problem with our society. And I would actually argue from the other perspective that actually we are becoming so much more productive in our society. It actually unites people from the left and the right, because people in the right wing would actually be saying, well, pay people a citizen's income and they can buy whatever goods and services they want, whether it be health or education or anything else, and let the market decide. And they're saying just give people the money and let them decide what to buy with that money. Whereas from our perspective, we say no, continue to provide your health and your education and your basic public services, but also, you know, replace our benefit system with actually a model of a citizen's income, and model it in such a way that we don't have people who are losing out. No, I think it's very important to clarify that Green Party in Northern Ireland, I mean, in terms of how the Greens are structured, we have Green Party in Northern Ireland here is its own autonomous Green Party. We're connected with the Green Party in the south, but in terms of the Green Party in England and Wales and the Green Party in Scotland, we're sister parties, but we make connections with each other and obviously work together. But we do make our own policies, and people might exploit that for whatever way they want. And that's an unfortunate circumstances we find ourselves in. I think it reflects, reflects the situation in Northern Ireland, that I think that we have a country that is really damaged by the we have a country that is very damaged by the history of division and violence and terrorism and everything else. And people like to use these issues to exploit division and to use them as a way to actually well, yeah, for their own political gain. I mean, the Green Party is born as a party, born out of the peace movement, and it's born as a party that actually has always stood up against the issue of violence, and to actually try and say that we're, after all the rhetoric and everything else that's come out from other political parties, and this tacit support for paramilitaries and terrorists and everything else, the fact that we've got political parties sitting in government with each other with their history of violence and terrorism and everything else, and they actually then pin it on, to actually start accusing the Green Party of being sympathetic of the terrorism. It's just ridiculous, really. It really is. And as I say, it's indicative of the damaged society that we live in. It really is. And all I can say is that that's not our politics. We're moving. We're not about that. It's not. It's ridiculous to suggest that we're sympathetic to the idea of terrorism. It's just we're certainly not. My feeling about politics is that I'm contributing something back to society, and I'm doing something that, like, in lots of ways I'm passionate about, and I enjoy many aspects of the role. Other aspects of the role are hard work, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not easy being a single councillor from a small party, going out and really battling against parties with huge amounts of resources and everything else. And my feeling is I'm doing this because I want to give something back to society. I'm committed to my role in terms of people put their trust in me and everything else. I'm committed to fulfilling that, and that's where I stand. But I can't say I don't want to become a career politician, put it that way. I don't want to be somebody who's just campaigning endlessly in elections and everything else. It's not where I want to see ultimately. I'll contribute, and encourage other people to get involved and contribute as well, because that, for me, I think it was Billy Connolly said, the only people who should be politicians are people who don't want to be politicians. And as I say, I think that there's aspects of the job I really like, and but it's not something I'm desperate to be a politician and I will do whatever it takes to be a politician. I've got principles and ideas, and that's what I want and policies that I would like to see implemented, and that's my objective, to do that for the better of the community.